Welcome to this week's episode of Coffee with a Journalist, brought to you by the team at One Pitch. Are you looking for a more efficient way to find and pitch the right journalists? Head over to our website at onepitch.co to learn more. On today's episode of Coffee with a Journalist, our guest is Jared Newman, a freelance technology journalist specializing in consumer tech for Fast Company. Jared also writes for the popular Cord Cutter Weekly column and has a tech advice newsletter called Advisorator. In this episode, Jared and Beck dive into the challenges of managing cluttered inboxes, the elevated expectations freelancers face when pitching stories to multiple editors, what actually makes a pitch stand out, and the role of LinkedIn and Slack. Enjoy!
Welcome, everyone. This is Coffee with the Journalist. I'm Beck Bamberger, and we do this show because we want publicists to better understand how to work with journalists, not other publicists sometimes, but journalists, reporters, editors, all the people that make the media world go round, because we need to work together to make it all happen. And I'm very excited today because coming from his blue background, I want to talk about that, Jared, in just a second, is Jared Newman. He is a freelance technology journalist that covers many outlets and goes into and has a newsletter himself. So we're going to talk about that. He writes about all things tech. Jared, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Beck.
Yes. Okay, so first off, what's with the little blue in the background? Because I like it. Oh my God, is this like the dress thing? Is it actually blue? Or am I making
you mean like the walls?
Yeah, your walls.
Those are just the walls.
Okay, just making sure. They're just like a nice baby blue going on.
It is a nice baby blue. I don't know.
Okay.
That's how the office came when I moved in here, and I decided I kind of liked it. So
staying
that's
with
where we're
it.
at.
I love it. Okay. Jared, when we have freelancers on here, it's a little bit different of a game than when it's a reporter who's like, working at the one desk and they have the one beat and they're bombarded with lots of pitches and so forth. But you often have to send pitches, but you also probably get pitches. First, let's start with your inbox then. How does it look in there?
Not great. Well, actually, I keep a pretty clean
You keep it tight?
inbox. I do. I'm not
Are you
exactly
a zero?
an inbox 0, but I'm like
Okay.
an inbox like 4. If that makes,
Me too.
So,
I get to that a lot where I'm like, oh, it's only 4. That's very good for me.
although actually today it's like inbox 30, because I try to be good about like I only go through like once every day, so things pile up and then I go through and get rid of them. But I'm pretty good about like keeping things clean. I move things out when they're not relevant or not needed.
Okay. And by move things out, do you mean straight delete, or are you filing, or what are you doing?
Usually delete. I get a lot of bad pitches. So those I just delete. There's ones that I archive or move into like a potentially interesting folder, something like that, or like stories I'm working on folder. Yeah, I do a lot of deleting on site. Occasionally archive if it's like, oh, this person, I might need their contact info for later. But I do delete stuff.
Okay. And for those that you do the archiving with, tell us a little bit about how you go back to find those people, because this is a whole sleigh that I think publicists need to know more about, like having the keywords in there so that journalists can find easily, oh yeah, there's that expert on this. There's this resource that is why. And of course, if you can't search that easily, then forget it. It's gone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Usually for me, it's just like company association. Okay, I know this person represents this company. I might need to come back to them for something later, but it's not, a pitch that I'm working on right now or interested in, but just so that it's in my inbox and I don't get rid of it and lose that contact information.
Okay, good. What are your pitches looking like these days that you're receiving? Because you cover a wide spectrum.
Yeah, they're all over the place. A lot of AI.
Yeah, I imagine.
I don't think there's anything super different from what they usually are, which is a mix of mostly stuff that I am not interested in or wouldn't go for, and occasionally there's something interesting, which is usually, just based on a company that we already covered or something like that, or really directly related to the thing that you probably heard this before, but as a freelancer, it's kind of, maybe it's an even higher bar than with, a staff writer, because it has to be something that, to your point, I then have to like go justify.
You got to now pitch it
to somebody above me. If it's just directly from a company's PR story, that's a pretty high bar.
That's a pretty, no. Mm-hmm. You're quite active on LinkedIn, obviously, for those who are looking. Just 1 hour ago, you put something on vampire survivors with Epic Games today. So you said interesting right there with like, it is not interesting. define a little bit more interesting, not just press release from publicists, from a company. How would you describe interesting?
I don't think it's that complicated. It's just like, hey, I actually paid attention to what you cover, and this is, directly in that field of interest. So I do a lot of writing, not exclusively, but I do a lot of writing about like streaming TV and cord cutting and that kind of thing. I was probably one of the first people that really started writing about that whole field before everybody canceled their cable and all that. Those kind of pitches get a lot of attention for me. A streaming service that's coming out with something, or somebody that I got a pitch from a company I'd never heard of that is selling an interesting device, and they wanted to see if I wanted to review it. So that was a good pitch. It's just highly relevant to what I write about, but those are rare.
Okay. What is really standing out to you where you're like, yes, that's a subject line I love and I want to open it, or just in general?
I just prefer like direct. I had a subject line that was just Unify News, and the Unify is YOUNIFI. It's a company. I've written about them before, and it literally is just the subject was company news, and that's it. And I opened it, versus ones that, I got one that was interesting. The company was kind of interesting. I ended up writing about them, but the headline was like, former Slingbox and Jawbone. It doesn't say executive, but I think that was implied. Former Slingbox Jawbone now tackling climate change, which is kind of misses the mark for me, because it's not about what the actual company is about, right? It's not about the product. It's just about kind of trying to do these associations. And I just prefer like direct. Like, tell me what the product is, so I know if I need to actually look at it or if it's completely irrelevant.
Yeah. Okay. So you said products. So tell us a little bit more about products that maybe are sparking your interest of late.
I'm always kind of focused on, the user of technology. I'm not so much business side. I mean, I do some of that for Fast Company. But even when I do that, it's kind of like, all right, well, how is that still relevant to somebody who uses the technology? So I'm always trying to help people be better technology users and get more out of it and understand what they're doing. That's what my newsletters are mostly about. So anything that I can tie back to that, a product that would be useful to somebody who is just a regular technology user,
just a regular consumer.
An app that solves a problem for somebody, a browser extension, a website, a device, a phone, something like that. That kind of stuff is gonna be interesting to me, versus like an expert talking about the implications of AI in 2026.
Are you getting a bunch of those right now?
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'm sure. They're like, yeah, okay. Jared, a little bit to demystify the pitching process that you go through. Could you give us an example of that? You get a story, you go like, hey, I like this pitch, I could use this. What happens then?
Depends on the outlet, but for something like Fast Company, I might even, like, if it's short enough, just like copy the body of the pitch and be like, hey, is this of interest? Or sometimes I might add a little spin to it depends on, like, if it's like a product of interest and they're coming out with product news, that might just be more directly like, hey, is this worth covering? Versus sometimes it's a little more like, oh, this company is pitching this and kind of ties into some other stuff I've been thinking about. And maybe there's a story there that is, pulling on a few different threads. But, I'll just go into Slack and hopefully we'll have a conversation about it that will.
Wait a second. So do you pitch via Slack to your editors?
Yeah. I'm freelance, but I'm kind of like contract for Fast Company and for PC World. And so both of those outlets, I'm like in the Slack and, have that kind of direct relationship with the editors.
That's efficient. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
How great is that?
If you can get that as a freelancer, don't let that go.
Yeah. I think you're the first I've heard say that. Just drop a Slack and see wow. Awesome. And just, I think, a showcase of how dominant Slack is. I mean, everyone is on Slack, in my opinion. Maybe those on Teams and so forth, which I cannot stand Teams and all that crap. But for those in the current century, Slack is where it's at. So that's good to know.
I consider myself lucky that we all kind of moved to one thing. I think one of the outlets was on HipChat for a while.
Oh, I know.
Which I didn't have a problem with it, but I just wanted.
It's just another.
I have a Slack for my friend, like my high school friends, and then I have a Slack for newsletter subscribers, and I have a Slack that I'm in with some tech journalists, and so like just having that all
Wait a second. Wait a second. You have a Slack with your friends? Not a
Yeah.
text, not a text chat. You have a Slack with your
Slack.
high school friends?
Yeah. I wrote an article about it once. It's great. I don't know, like
Oh, I didn't see that. When is this article? I didn't see this.
This was a while
I was going to
ago.
say I didn't go deep into the archives. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'll send it to you.
Please.
I don't
I
know,
love
like
this.
there's something, I don't know exactly how it came up. I think it was because, a bunch of us were using Slack already for work. And I think what's kind of nice about it is that we have these like rooms, right? Like we have like a general room, we have like a video games room that some people are less tuned out of, and there's like a music, like what music are you listening to room. And so we have these kind of threads that are, some people are more interested in some than others, so it kind of works out.
I kind of like that. It's a different adaptation to just the random text thread, because some people will be like, I don't want to hear about the sports game. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah, and you can have the threading and all that. And some of us are Android people versus iPhone people, and so we don't like to discriminate iMessage versus
with the
Android.
green versus the blue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty cool. Okay. Jared, is there anything that bugs the crap out of you with Publicis?
Probably everything you've heard before, like 4 or 5 emails on the same thing. I don't love being called on the phone personally. I think some people maybe do. I really don't. It's mostly just, I see my email. Like I'm pretty good about email, and I see everything that comes through. Like I don't really need the phone call. And I'd say like it's exceedingly rare that a phone call is gonna like put me over the edge. And mostly I just don't even pick up the phone. So yeah, that annoys me.
I mean, I typically don't. If I don't know the number, no. Why would I? I get so much
long pitches.
Okay, long pitches.
Yeah, like I need like, I don't know, 3 sentences or 3 paragraphs, 3 short paragraphs, and a link is good. I don't need like a whole, I guess if we're getting into like the email pitch, just like the 10,000 foot view paragraph before that gets to like what you're actually pitching. Like if you're pitching a streaming service, I don't need like a whole big thing about how people are streaming video more these days and getting more conscious about which streaming services they're paying for. Like I know that's what I do. I cover that already. I don't need the context. I just need the information about what you are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. On the opposite side, anything that you absolutely love?
I like when I have a relationship with a relationship's a strong word, but
you know the person.
Somebody that I know that, to the point, this email that I had mentioned earlier, it's a person that goes way back, and I know that generally if they're pitching me, it's something that's probably like at least worth a look. And PR people that really go out of their way to get you what you need,
Yes, efficiently and quickly.
Because sometimes I'm the one trying to get the PR person to set me up with an interview or give me a certain information on a tight deadline or whatever. And it's not always easy to find people that, will help you out when you need it. And so that's always great when somebody, I'm like, that person did me a solid. Like I'm going to remember that,
Good. Oh, good. Oh, I think publicists need to hear that more of like, do that solid, do the extra mile, do the extra, like, let me just get this to you, whatever it is, because you do remember. And not that we want to have tit for tat relationships back and forth, but you remember when someone helps you, for sure.
Like I'm bad at remembering PR people's names.
Yeah.
Because there's so many pitches. Do you remember E3, the video game?
Yeah.
I think maybe it was like the first or second E3 that I went to, and I was like a nobody. I was writing for, a tiny blog.
And there was
one thing that I was trying to see this one video game. I was doing more video game stuff back then. And like, a writer from like a big outlet came in and like cut the line, and I wasn't actually able to see this thing. So that was one experience. And then there was like another experience where it was actually like the Sony booth, and this like one PR person was like, I'm just going to get you everything you need. I'm going to take you around and like make sure that you see all the specific things that you want to, like, she just was just like, I'm going to
adopt you.
Yeah. So I remember that person.
Yeah. That's cool. That's great.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Appreciate it.
Yeah. See, look, you remember her name. Yes.
I was like, I don't know, 12 years ago.
Wow. This is what I love. These are the impressions that you can make on someone that you don't even maybe know. Like she might not even remember this, right, Jared? But you remember this. And I love stories like that because there's people you impact in ways you're never going to know, little tiny way. We're all helping each other out. Or we're trying to, at least for the most part. And I love something like that because you're never going to forget her. Probably. I love it. I love it.
Today's interview will continue after this brief message brought to you by One Pitch. Are you curious to learn about the unique ways One Pitch helps brands engage with the right journalists? Head to onepitch.co and create your own custom media list in 5 minutes or less. Now back to today's episode.
Okay, you inferred a little bit on relationship building, Jared. Do you want to have relationships with publicists? You were saying like relationship's a hard word, but how does that kind of look for any relationship building for you?
I mean, I went to J school, so I was kind of trained to have a slightly antagonistic relationship.
View of, yes. Okay.
Which is why, because like relationship's a strong word, because I know. Like, there's a part of me that's always like, no, don't do that. We are ultimately like working together on some capacity.
We are. Yes.
You have things that you want and I want, and we need to interact to make those things happen. And
that's the whole point of the show. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that happens.
Okay. Could you elaborate a little bit more on just, you're in Cincinnati, right? For the most part. If someone's coming to town, do you ever want to get a coffee, or you're like, I just want to talk to you on email, never call me, as you were mentioning? Like, how does that, let's not say relationship, but how does a correspondence ever happen with you?
PR, like, let's get a coffee and just hang out.
Yeah.
It's not something that's super appealing to me. I mean, I don't know, like I've done it here, and there's people that are here just because it's so rare that there are people here. But oftentimes, like, even I'll get something that's like, let's catch up over the phone about like what you're covering and what you're interested in. And I don't really like that too much, just because I don't have the time really, like, and like the things that I'm interested in, I feel like are out there. You could just look at my coverage and you could see what I'm interested in. So, I feel like that's me. That's asking a lot of me, I guess. I don't know. That sounds stuck up, but that's
that's fine. That's fine. Jared, I have a rapid question list that I'd love to tee up to you. First one is video or phone interview? Oh,
yeah. Phone. It doesn't happen anymore, because the thing is that I've been working from, this is maybe a longer answer than you want. I've been working from home since, 2008, whenever I started freelancing. And so video calling was not the standard for long distance interviews. And I kind of like the phone. I feel like I'm more relaxed when I'm asking questions on it. I don't have to worry about my posture or what I'm looking at or my appearance. I can just focus on the conversation. So I kind of like that, but it's kind of gone away because now everybody just expects.
But phone is, I'm finding, by the way, when I like get to have someone just on the phone, it's almost like this like new dimension. And you're like, oh, I'm just so into this voice. And I could like be looking at my books, and who cares? I'm looking over here. Like I could be, isn't that funny how that kind of works?
I have kind of like a posture, right? When I'm on a kind of, like this.
Yeah, exactly. I could be like, who cares? I'm emptying the dishwasher. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. And it doesn't matter because you're good and you're on the call too. Okay. More calls. Bullet points or paragraphs in pitches?
I don't think I have a strong opinion about that, but short paragraphs.
Okay, short paragraphs, which is the next question. Short or long pitches? And short. I want to do short. Images attached or a Dropbox zip file?
Okay, I'm gonna say Dropbox zip file, but don't put tracking links on it. That's another thing. I didn't mention that earlier. Don't track my email. Don't track that I opened it. Don't track that I clicked on it. Just don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah. How do you know?
Oh, how do I know that it's...
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I used to have an extension that like blocked the open rate thing. Now I have a different extension that still does that, but it doesn't like call it out explicitly when it's been detected. So I don't know that as much, but if I hover over a link in Gmail, I can see when it's going to the link versus like going through a bunch of tracking junk. So I can tell when we're doing that. And sometimes I won't click on something because I see that that's happening, and that just annoys me. So.
Oh, good tip. Okay. Haven't heard that one lately. Good. Email or Twitter DM or any DM, whatever, any DM.
Email.
One follow-up or multiple?
One
and done. Direct or creative subject lines?
What do you mean?
Direct
or creative subject lines. Direct. Yeah,
yes.
Direct.
Do you ever want a press release or a media kit?
I like a link. I like that. If it's linked, I don't necessarily need it all in the email, but a short pitch that's like, here's more information. That's good.
Okay. Okay, good. What about the time you read pitches, if at all? Is there a time?
When time permits, it doesn't really matter to me.
When time permits, yes.
Yeah.
Nighttime, daytime, all the time. Actually, this is my last question for you. Is there anything you want to tout, promote, discuss? I know we talked about newsletters earlier.
Yeah, I write a couple of newsletters.
Okay. Yes, you do.
Yeah, there's one that I write about with streaming video and cord cutting. I've been helping people save money on TV for
A long time.
And then I have another one that is just tech advice to help you discover new apps and cool tricks and things like that. So if you just go to jarednewman.com, you'll see
find it. You'll get all the stuff.
Sign up for both of them. That'd be very cool.
Cool.
I'm never going to be able to think about that thing. And it's
well, send me an email when you do. We can script it in somehow.
Yeah.
Jared, thank you so much for being here today. This was so helpful. Now we know about tracking. Don't track the emails, everybody. That's good to know. Jared Newman is a technology freelancer for multiple outlets, including Fast Company. Jared, happy holidays, all the things. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Beck. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this week's Coffee with a Journalist episode featuring Jared Newman, a freelance technology journalist. For more exclusive insights about the journalists on this podcast, subscribe to our weekly podcast newsletter at onepitch.co/podcast. We'll see you next week, but until then, start great stories.